Okay. So, uh, you sent this in, write this article about Biden and Harris calling to congratulate Trump
Yeah.
after that crazy election.
It was wild, right?
I mean, on the surface, it's just a phone call,
Uh-huh.
but like underneath it all,
Oh, yeah.
this is like a huge moment in
Absolutely.
how we talk about American politics.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. Like, on the surface, it's just a phone call.
Right.
But what it does is it really throws open the doors to like a whole new dynamic.
Okay.
We just came out of 4 years
Yeah.
of intense division.
Totally.
And suddenly this gesture of reaching across the aisle, it's like we all just hit the pause button.
Yeah, like we're all holding our breath.
Yeah.
Like what happens now?
What's next?
And that's what makes this deep dive so important. We're
Yeah.
not just looking back at what happened.
Right.
We're trying to understand what it means for the future.
Yeah, like how we talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly how we talk to each other politically.
Absolutely. And you have to remember the context, This isn't just, like after a football game, you say, good game,
Yeah, yeah.
good match. This is about two sides
Oh, yeah, this is different.
who have fundamentally different visions for the country.
Yeah.
And they're acknowledging the outcome of a really hard-fought election.
And like, I bet you've got friends and family
Oh, for sure.
on both sides of this.
Totally.
Some who are celebrating, some who are really worried about this.
Yeah, definitely.
This call is going to land very differently for a lot of people.
They're going to hit people in different ways, for sure.
So how does that impact how we talk about this going forward?
Well, on the one hand, you have Biden saying, congratulations, Mr. President-elect, which is not just conceding defeat. It's
Yeah.
a commitment to the process itself.
It sets a tone.
Yeah, it does set a certain tone.
And I think for a lot of people who are, maybe feeling anxious about what all of this means,
Mm-hmm.
seeing VP Harris on that call too, it almost feels like a promise.
Okay.
Like we're still here and we're going to keep advocating for what we believe in,
Yeah.
but we're doing it within the framework of our democracy.
It's a really powerful signal that even when dialogue is tough,
Yeah,
even when it's tough,
when it's hard.
it's the way forward.
Okay.
It's a reminder that we're all part of this system together.
So we're all in this together.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Okay.
This isn't a magic wand.
Right.
One phone call doesn't erase years of division.
Doesn't fix everything overnight.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Does this mean we're shifting toward more productive conversations?
Right.
Or is it just a blip?
A little blip on the radar, and then we go back to the same old, same old.
Right back to it.
Well, to answer that, I think we need to look a little deeper at the potential for real dialogue,
Okay.
not just these symbolic gestures.
Not just the surface.
Right, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to determine where American politics goes.
In the next 4 years.
Exactly, in the years to come.
Wow.
So much to unpack here.
This is huge.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so much to think about.
This idea of real dialogue,
Yeah.
that's really what it all comes down to, isn't it?
It does feel like that.
Because we can all think of examples
Oh, yeah.
of times when dialogue just broke down,
Totally.
where it was more about,
Scoring points.
scoring points, exactly,
And actually getting somewhere.
than finding solutions.
Oh, man, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough, and it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
like, how do we move past that?
It feels almost impossible sometimes.
It does.
Like I'm thinking about Thanksgiving dinner
Oh, yeah.
with your family
Uh-huh.
and, politics comes up.
Always.
And sometimes it's like everyone's just talking at each other.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening.
Not really having a conversation.
Right.
So, yeah, how do we get past that?
How do we actually talk to each other?
Well, that's where I think looking at the
Yeah.
dynamics of the dialogue
Okay.
really helps.
So this call.
Yeah, even if it was just for a few minutes.
Right.
It gives us something to think about.
A model.
Yeah, like a model for how to do this.
Right.
Because think about it.
So-
Biden and Harris,
Yeah.
they acknowledged the outcome.
They did.
They said congratulations.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean they suddenly agree with everything.
Everything Trump wants to do.
Exactly.
So it's like you can
Yeah, you can disagree,
disagree strong,
vehemently disagree.
but still say.
Yeah, but still recognize
Their person.
recognize the other person
All right.
and recognize the process.
Like the system worked the way it's supposed to.
Exactly. And that in itself is a
Yeah.
huge first step.
It is.
Because if you can't even get past that
That basic level of respect.
basic respect,
Yeah.
then you can't even have a real dialogue.
Right.
It's just a shouting match
It is. It's just a shouting match.
at that point.
Okay. So, but let's say I'm being honest here.
Yeah.
Respecting someone doesn't mean I have to agree with them.
No, of course not.
Or even like them.
Right.
How do I have a productive conversation with someone
Yeah.
when I just fundamentally disagree with their values?
Well, that's where I think it gets really interesting. And that's where that article you sent about active listening
Oh, yeah.
really comes into play.
That's a good one.
It is, because it's not about
Pretending.
right. It's not about pretending to agree.
Okay.
It's about really trying to hear
Hear what they're saying.
that other perspective, even if you hate it.
Even if you just like completely disagree.
Yeah, even if it makes you want to scream.
Okay, so let's say I'm talking to someone who supports something I find really harmful.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that active listening thing
Yeah.
without just feeling angry the whole time?
Well, active listening is about asking questions.
Okay.
Try to understand the why.
The why behind it.
Yeah, like why do they believe this?
Okay.
Not to necessarily change their mind,
Right.
but to bridge that gap in understanding.
To see where they're coming from.
And maybe in that process, you find some common ground. Okay. Even if it's just a tiny little bit.
So you're saying Biden and Harris making that call,
Yeah.
they were modeling
Look, right. Yeah.
a way to have a conversation.
They were saying, look, we can disagree, but we can still talk to each other. We can
Yeah.
still function within the system.
Even when it's hard.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this wasn't just a show.
Not just for the cameras.
Right. This had real implications.
So what were the implications?
Well, for one, it signaled to the world
To everyone watching.
that even though the election was really tense,
Right. It was crazy.
America's democracy was still working.
Yeah.
The institutions were still intact.
That's huge.
It is. And I think on a more personal level,
Yeah.
for people who voted for Biden and Harris,
Who wanted them to win.
yeah, it might have felt reassuring.
Like, okay.
Like, even though their candidates didn't win,
Right.
the fight for their values.
Not over.
It continues,
Yeah.
but it continues within the bounds of the system. It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between standing up for what you believe in
Yes.
and recognizing that in a democracy,
Yeah.
you're not always going to get your way.
You're not always going to win.
Exactly. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just step back.
Take a breath.
Take a breath and have a conversation,
Even when it's hard.
even when it's really difficult.
This is making me think about
What's that?
empathy.
Okay.
The role of empathy in all of this.
Yeah.
Because if I can't even begin to understand
Uh-huh.
where someone else is coming from,
Yeah.
how can we even have a conversation?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, empathy. You have to have empathy.
It's crucial.
And that brings us back to you listening right now.
Right.
Because this isn't just like,
Some theory.
yeah, some abstract political theory.
You're rooting out there.
Right. This is about you.
This is about your life.
How you talk to people, how you engage.
Especially when it comes to those, like,
Those hot button issues.
with stuff that gets everybody,
They get everyone fired up.
riled up.
Right.
Yeah, think about it. Like, your own life, your friends,
Family.
your family,
Yeah.
your work.
Coworkers.
How often are you just, like,
Shutting down.
shutting down conversations?
Yeah.
Because they get too
Needed.
heated or too uncomfortable?
Too hard. This call,
Why, Harris Trump,
it's like they're challenging us
to do better.
to do better
They're saying, hey, if we can do this
at the highest level
the highest level of government.
with all that pressure.
Yeah,
to a-
surely
We can figure this out
we can find a way
in our own lives.
to talk to each other.
It's not about pretending like we all agree.
No.
It's about recognizing
We have these differences.
that we're different.
Yeah.
We see the world differently,
But then finding that common ground.
however small it is,
Yeah, even that tiny sliver
to move forward.
to move forward together.
Okay, so what does all this mean?
What's the takeaway?
For you listening right now,
What can you do?
first off,
Number one,
even the most divided
political landscape.
can surprise you.
Yeah.
You think there's no hope.
And then
Something like this phone call happens.
it gives you a little glimmer of hope.
Dialogue is a skill.
You can practice it.
You can get better at it.
It's like a muscle.
Active listening,
Asking questions,
trying to understand,
where the other person is coming from.
and maybe the most important thing,
The big one.
you have a role to play in this.
You're not just a bystander.
You're not just a bystander.
How you engage,
How you talk to people,
how you listen,
how you hold your leaders accountable.
it all matters.
It all adds up.
This deep dive was just the beginning.
The first step.
Now it's up to you.
To take it from here,
Apply it to your life. Democracy thrives on this.
it needs dialogue.
The future of that dialogue.
Is in your hands.
Okay. So we'll leave you with this.
One last thought.
What's one small step you can take? Stay.
To foster more productive dialogue.
In your own life.
Think about it
Yeah, give it some thought.
and go make it happen.
Get out there.
Thanks for joining us on this Deep Dive 7 app.